Brooks, another commonly asked question in retirement planning is simply, how much do I need to retire? How would you answer that if a client walked in and asked you that question?
Well, how much do I need to retire? Well, what are tax rates going to be in 30 years? What are capital gains rates going to be in 40 years?
You should know.
Am I going to have Social Security? I don't know. There's a lot of people that can go and Google this kind of stuff, and they'll get all kinds of different calculations. One of the most common ones being, 10 times your annual salary needs to be what you start out with. But there's so many underlying factors. So many underlying factors. How I'm invested. What are tax rates? Am I having Social Security? What is long-term health care going to look like? Am I going to get an inheritance? Am I not going to get an inheritance? Did I go put all of my money in too much into one stock and lose all of it and it never came back? I mean, there's so many different scenarios that you can run in this. For instance, if you've got two separate individuals, one that's got pension income from a prior employer but only has 400,000 saved, okay? If he's rationally able to use his Social Security and pension income to fund most of his employment, he or she shouldn't have that heartburn to say, I don't have enough saved to retire, right? Because what they're going to be getting in income is more than justifiable enough that they don't need $1 million saved. While at the same time, someone might not have that pension income and they need the $1.5 million saved because they're going to be eating more into their retirement assets. So there's not a one size fits all. And I feel like a lot of the things that you can look at online and calculate on what you need to retire are very general and very broad, and it needs to be specifically catered to that individual. And that's why it's so important to work with a financial planner in order to build that plan out so that you understand the goalposts that need to be put in place.
Well said. I really like how you highlight kind of, there's some responsibility on the client in this case to come up with, what do you envision retirement to look like? We've heard this comes in various forms, but we've heard, how do you live with no regrets? You think about yourself later in life, age 85, 90, and look back and think, what would you have wanted your life to look like? So I think that's a good exercise for someone planning on working through retirement plans. Think about yourself in 20 years. When you look back, what do you want your life to look like? That's a good starting point to then what would that cost?
Mm-hmm.
And then working with a professional to see, okay, here are my assets, my income. Can we accomplish this vision that I have or not? But I agree, there's not an easy answer to what do I need to retire?
I think it comes down to just the earlier you can engage a financial advisor to start putting the goalpost in the ground, the more clear the path is to how much you need to retire, right? There's so much of a cognition that I've got to be 10 years out before I call someone. I got to be 5 years out. I got to be 15 years out. They've set it up in their mind that I'm going to work. I'm going to save as much as I can, and at the end of the day, when I turn 55, I'm going to go to the professionals and I'm going to see if I'm even in the ballpark of what I need. But what's so important is you're not getting back time. We can always somewhat control return, and we can always somewhat control maybe cutting back spending and putting more to savings for that little bit of time. The one thing we can never get back is time. And that is the most critical component to achieving the goals. If you're constantly just working and grinding and you just finally pull your head up out of the sand and say, all right, where's my goalpost? And they're not even there, you don't even know what you're aiming for. So that's why I think it's so critical to have a professional just in your corner being able to kind of guide the ship, if you will.
Yeah. And the time commitment doing that is not huge. I
No.
mean, doing some basic planning that gets you pointed in the right direction is not an overly burdensome effort.